Don't do this, they begged, but the rancher did it anyway. Dust always came first. It floated in slow waves over the Harrow Ranch, turning the morning light into a soft, pale glow. The twin suns were still low, and the long grass on the plain looked silver at the tips, like someone had brushed it with frost. Far away, the land rose into red ridges and broken stone. Closer in, fences cut straight lines across the open ground, and water tanks sat like dark coins on the earth. Elias Harrow stood at the edge of the main pasture with a metal cup in his hand. The cup was warm from the tea inside. He did not rush. He never rushed. The work of a ranch was steady work, the kind that punished panic and rewarded patience. In the pasture, the herd moved like a slow storm. From a distance, someone might have called them cattle. They had thick bodies and heavy shoulders. They grazed with heads down, and their hooves pressed deep prints into the soil. But they were too large to be cattle and too quiet. No lowing, no calls, only the sound of grass tearing and the faint, steady vibration that came from inside their chests. If the wind shifted, you could smell them, not like animals, but like warm stone after rain and something sharp beneath it, like clean metal. Elias watched them for a long time. His face was lined and weathered the way faces got under hard suns. His hair had more gray than brown now. His eyes were calm, but always alert, like a man who had learned that the quiet moments were the ones that mattered most. A small drone hummed up beside his shoulder. It was the size of a fist, painted the same dusty color as the ranch buildings. Its camera lens turned toward the pasture, then toward Elias. "All fences stable," the drone said in a flat, polite voice. "Water levels adequate, no predator signatures detected." Elias took a sip of tea. "Good," he said. The drone hovered in place, waiting for more orders, but Elias didn't give any. The ranch did not need constant talk. It needed hands, it needed eyes, it needed someone who could listen to the land. Behind him, the main house and the barn sat on a slight rise. The buildings were old by frontier standards. They had been patched and repaired so many times that the walls looked like a quilt of different materials. The barn doors were thick, reinforced, and fitted with locks that were far stronger than any normal rancher would need. The windmill beside the water tower looked simple and worn, but its base had strange patterns carved into it, half hidden under paint and dust. Nothing about the ranch was flashy, that was the point. Elias turned and started walking back toward the house. His boots crunched softly on the dry ground. The drone followed him like a quiet dog. He was halfway to the porch when the sky changed. At first it was only a flicker of shadow moving across the plains, like a cloud passing over. But there were no clouds here, not often. The air was too dry, too thin. The shadow came again, wider, faster, and this time the dust lifted as if pulled upward. Elias stopped. He looked up. A streak of fire tore across the upper sky, bright enough to make him narrow his eyes. It left a thin trail behind it, a line of burning air that glowed for a moment before fading. The object was coming down fast, too fast for a controlled landing. The drone's voice changed. "High-energy entry detected, trajectory unstable, impact projected within ranch boundary." Elias did not swear, he did not shout. He only breathed out slowly, as if he had been expecting this day for a long time. "How close?" he asked. 17 kilometers, the drone answered. "Decreasing." Elias set his cup on the porch rail and stepped inside the house. He moved with purpose now, still calm but quicker. He crossed to a cabinet in the corner of the main room and opened it with a key he wore on a chain. Inside were tools that did not belong in a normal ranch home. A compact medical kit with auto sealers, a signal jammer, a folded thermal cloak, and an old weapon that looked simple but was heavier than it should have been. He did not take the weapon. He took the cloak and the medical kit. Outside, the sound came next. A deep, roaring crack that rolled over the plains and made the windows tremble. The herd in the pasture lifted their heads at the same time, perfectly synchronized, like one creature. For a brief moment, Elias felt the vibration in the ground change, like the planet itself had tightened. Then the sound of impact hit. A distant boom, followed by a long, rough tearing noise as something large scraped across stone and dirt. The drone hovered near the doorway. "Impact confirmed." Elias stepped onto the porch again and looked toward the horizon. A dark line of smoke rose into the pale sky. It bent with the wind and spread. He pulled the thermal cloak over his shoulders and started toward the garage. The garage held his old Rover, scratched and dusty, with thick tires made for rocky ground. He climbed inside, started it, and drove out along a dirt track that ran beside the nearest fence line. As he moved, the ranch passed by in slow, familiar shapes: water tanks, fence posts, the windmill, the pasture, and the herd watching him, silent and still. He reached a high ridge after 20 minutes. From there he could see the crash site, a long, ugly scar in the earth where the ship had gouged the ground. Pieces of dark metal lay scattered like broken bones. The main body of the craft had come to rest near a dry gully, its hull cracked open in places, smoke leaking from seams. It was not a human ship. The design was wrong, too sharp in some places, too smooth in others. The surface looked like a dark shell, almost like stone, with faint lines running through it that pulsed with weak light. Elias had seen ships like it before, on screens and in old reports. Coalition craft. He drove down toward it, stopping a good distance away. He parked behind a large boulder, not because he feared an explosion, but because he knew the people inside might wake up angry and confused. He took the medical kit and climbed out. The air smelled of burnt fuel and hot minerals. The ground was warm under his boots. The ship was quiet now, but not dead. He could hear faint clicking sounds inside, like systems trying to restart. He raised his hands and walked toward the open tear in the hull. "I'm coming in," he called out. His voice was clear, steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." For a few seconds there was only smoke and silence. Then a harsh voice answered, sharp and strange in its accent, but in a language Elias understood. "Human," it said. "Approach slowly. Identify yourself. Do not make sudden movements." Elias kept walking at an easy pace. "Name's Elias Harrow," he said. "This is my land. You crashed here." A shape moved in the opening. An alien stepped into view holding a weapon. The being was tall, with backward-bending legs and a long, narrow torso. Its skin was pale gray and covered with hard plates along the shoulders and arms. Its head was angular, with a crest that rose slightly at the back. Its eyes were black and glossy, like polished stone. The weapon it held was sleek and bright, nothing like the old human guns Elias had seen as a boy. Behind it, another alien appeared, limping, clutching its side. There were more inside, voices speaking quickly, stressed. The one with the weapon pointed it at Elias. "You will provide assistance," it said. "Supplies, water, fuel, immediately." Elias stopped several steps away, still with his hands up. "You're hurt," he said. "Let me see to that first." The alien's crest lifted slightly, a gesture that looked like irritation. "You will do as ordered. We are Coalition Patrol. You are a local." Elias nodded once, like he was considering the words carefully. "A patrol," he repeated. "Far from your lanes." The alien's weapon did not move, but its stance tightened. "Do not question Coalition movements." "I'm not," Elias said. "Just saying it's a long way to fall." The limping alien behind the first one made a sound that could have been pain or anger. "Enough," it snapped. "We need coolant and replacement cells. The beacon must be repaired." Elias' eyes flicked to the inside of the ship. He saw sparks. He saw twisted support beams. He saw a third alien lying on the floor, not moving. "How many of you?" Elias asked. The armed one hesitated, just a fraction. "5, it said. 2 injured, 1 incapacitated." Elias lowered his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon. "I've got water and basic medical stuff in the rover," he said. "I'll bring it, but you need to keep that thing pointed away from me." The alien did not lower the weapon. "You will comply." Elias looked at the weapon, then at the alien's eyes. He was not afraid, but he knew fear in others. He could smell it in the way the second alien breathed. He could hear it in the tight, fast voices inside the ship. They were trained, sure. But they were also stranded, and they were in human space, whether they admitted it or not. Elias nodded again. "All right," he said. "Stay here, don't move around too much. Your hull is unstable." He turned and walked back to the rover without rushing. He felt the weapon on his back the whole way. When he returned with the medical kit and 2 water canisters, the aliens watched him like he was a trap waiting to spring. He set the supplies down slowly and opened the kit. "Sit," he told the limping one, pointing to a flat rock. The alien stared at him like it had never been told what to do by a human before. But then it sat, breathing hard. Elias worked quietly. He used an auto-sealer to close a long cut along the alien's side where a shard of hull metal had torn through its plating. The alien flinched, then went still as the device numbed the area. The armed alien kept its weapon up. "You will provide fuel," it said again, as if repeating it would make the universe obey. "I will," Elias said, "but you need to drink first." Dehydration will kill you faster than a broken ship. The armed alien did not want a drink. Elias saw that. But its hands trembled just slightly, and after a moment it signaled another crew member to take a canister. That one drank greedily, then wiped its mouth with the back of its hand. Elias finished sealing the wound and turned his attention to the inside of the ship. "Let me see the one on the floor," he said. "No," the armed one snapped. Elias paused. He did not argue right away. He looked at the alien, then at the smoke, then at the pale sky. He felt the wind push dust against his boots. "If you don't let me help," he said, "you may lose them, and if you lose them, you'll be fewer hands to fix your ship." The armed alien's crest shifted again. It considered. Finally it stepped aside, still aiming the weapon but giving Elias a path. Elias climbed into the torn hull. Inside, the air was hot and sharp. The ship's walls hummed faintly. Lights flickered along the floor. The crew member on the ground was breathing, but shallowly. Its chest plates were cracked, and a dark fluid had dried around the break. Elias knelt beside it. He opened the kit and scanned the alien's vitals. The device beeped softly, then displayed warnings in a language Elias couldn't read, but he understood enough from the numbers and symbols. Internal damage, breathing compromised, shock. Elias took a breath and began working. He was careful. He did not do anything sudden. He stabilized the cracked plates with a flexible brace and injected a broad-spectrum shock reducer designed for mixed biology. The alien's breathing steadied slightly. As Elias worked, he felt the crew watching him. He could hear whispers behind him. Why is he calm? Humans are supposed to be lesser. This world is nothing. Elias kept his eyes on the injured alien. He did not speak to the whispers. He had heard worse long ago. When he finished, he stood and wiped his hands on a cloth. "They'll live if you keep them still," he said. The armed alien stepped closer, weapon still up. "You will give fuel," it repeated, but its voice had lost some of its sharpness. Elias nodded. "I'll bring what I can," he said, "but your beacon, don't turn it on." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Elias stepped down from the hull and looked out across the plain toward his ranch. "This planet isn't on your maps by accident," he said. "If you call your fleet here, you'll bring trouble." The alien made a harsh sound. "Trouble for you, perhaps. The coalition will take what it requires. If there are resources, they will be claimed. You will be compensated if you comply." Elias turned back to face it fully. His voice stayed simple, almost gentle. "There are things here you don't understand," he said. The armed alien took a step closer. The barrel of the weapon pointed at Elias' chest now. "Human," it said, slow and cold, "you will not threaten coalition authority." Elias did not move. He did not raise his voice, but something in his eyes changed just a little, not anger. Not fear, something older, something like a man looking at a storm and deciding where to plant his feet. "I'm not threatening you," Elias said. "I'm warning you." The alien's jaw plates tightened. "We have scanned your structures," it said. "Your ranch, your fences, your herd. There is abnormal power draw, unregistered tech. That violates coalition frontier codes." Elias felt his stomach sink, not because he was surprised, but because he knew what would come next. "You scanned," he said quietly. "Yes," the alien replied. "We will report this world for inspection and acquisition. You will cooperate. If you resist, you will be removed." Behind Elias, the wind shifted, and he heard it, the faint, deep vibration from the pasture. It was not loud, but it was steady, like a sleeping giant's breath. Elias looked toward the ridge where his ranch sat, small against the wide land. From here, the pasture fences were thin lines. The herd was a cluster of dark shapes. The alien followed his gaze, its voice softened, almost curious. "Those animals," it said, "they are valuable. Large, strong, our markets will pay well." Elias' hand tightened around the strap of the medical kit. He had promised himself years ago that no outsider would learn what the herd truly was. He had promised to keep the quiet, but the coalition did not care about quiet. It cared about taking. Elias looked back at the armed alien. "Don't do this," he said. He meant the beacon. He meant the report. He meant waking the wrong things. The alien's crest rose higher, and for the first time its voice held something like uncertainty. You are begging?" Elias shook his head once. "No," he said. "I'm asking you to leave while you still can." The alien stared at him for a long moment. Then it gave a short, sharp laugh. "A human rancher," it said, as if it was the funniest thing it had ever heard. "On a dirt world, issuing warnings to the coalition." It lifted its weapon slightly, like a reminder. "You will bring fuel, you will allow inspection, and you will not interfere with our beacon." Elias looked at the weapon, then at the broken ship, then at the injured crew member breathing softly in the corner. He could have walked away. He could have let the coalition fix their ship and leave and hope they forgot. But they would not forget. They had already scanned. They would report, they would come back with more ships, more soldiers, more orders, and then the quiet would be gone forever. Elias nodded, slow and careful, like he was accepting the command. "All right," he said. "I'll bring fuel." The alien lowered the weapon a fraction, satisfied. Elias turned and started walking back toward his rover. As he did, his gaze drifted once more to the pasture. The herd stood in a line now, all facing the same direction, as if listening to something only they could hear. The vibration in the ground felt stronger, almost like a pulse. The drone's voice came through Elias' earpiece, low and private. "Containment protocol sensing external scan activity. Recommend initiating level 1 concealment." Elias kept walking, but his throat felt tight. "Not yet," he whispered. He climbed into the rover and started the engine. The wheels rolled over the rocky ground, heading back toward the ranch. Behind him, the coalition crew began working on their beacon. The suns had climbed higher, burning brighter across the dry plains. Dust spiraled lazily in the wind, carrying the faint scent of iron from the crashed ship. Elias Harrow drove slowly back toward his ranch, the rover's wheels pressing tracks into the hard dirt. The morning's quiet was gone, replaced by a low, constant hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself, vibrating against his boots through the floor of the vehicle. The herd was still in the pasture, their heads turned toward the horizon as if they could sense more than he could see. Elias had learned to read such signals over decades of ranching, to trust the subtle hints the land and creatures gave. And now they were telling him something had changed. He parked the rover near the garage, climbed down, and took a deep breath. The air was warm but dry, sharp against his lungs. He felt the familiar weight of the key chain around his neck. The garage door was scratched and old, but it would do. Inside, he could hear the soft hum of dormant machinery beneath the floor, machines that had not moved in decades. Elias went to the controls built into the wall. Lights flickered across the panel, tiny indicators of power and status. He ran his hand across the surface, feeling the subtle vibrations, checking the systems. All was quiet, except for the faint signals from the rover and the strange, distant sound of the herd. He had told himself he would not awaken what lay beneath the ranch, not yet. But the coalition patrol, stranded, damaged, arrogant, was testing the limits. If they activated their beacon, the galaxy would soon know about this world. That could not happen. He moved toward the rover again. The fuel tanks he had prepared were simple, standard human tech, nothing that would attract attention. But the patrol would see it as an offer of compliance, a demonstration of trust. That trust would buy him time. The first alien stepped out from the hull, tall and angular, its weapon raised. The other two remained inside, recovering, their movements slow. Elias nodded at the armed one. "I brought the fuel," he said. His voice was calm, measured. "Keep your crew safe while I do this." The alien considered him, then gestured for him to begin. Elias crouched beside the supply containers, pulling hoses and connecting them carefully. The alien's eyes followed every motion, their black surface reflecting the morning light. "You are very calm," the alien said finally, its voice rough from damaged vocal cords or strain. "For a human." Elias did not look up. "Experience," he said, "and patience." "Experience," the alien's head tilted. "This is unusual. Humans rarely have patience." "They are reckless and weak." Elias laughed softly. "You have never met my kind before," he said. "Most humans are busy proving how reckless they can be. Some learn better." The alien watched him, quiet. Elias filled the last fuel cell, wiped his hands on a cloth, and stepped back. The armed alien's weapon lowered slightly, though its stance remained alert. "Your herd," it said after a pause. "Large, strong, valuable." Elias' eyes flicked toward the pasture. The creatures stood still, all of them facing the crash site now, like shadows pressed against the wind. "They are not livestock," he said simply. "They are kept for protection. That is all you need to know." The alien's crest rose sharply. "Protection from whom?" Elias shook his head. "From dangers you cannot understand, dangers that would destroy this world and yours if awakened improperly." The alien glanced toward the sky, then back at Elias. "You are warning us." "I am," Elias said. "Don't do this, don't broadcast." "Don't call your fleet." The alien laughed, short and sharp. "A human warning a coalition officer, and you call yourself a rancher?" I call myself a caretaker, Elias said. That is my role, and I intend to keep it. For a moment, the alien seemed to consider him. Then it barked a sharp command, and two of the crew moved out of the ship to help connect their systems for repairs. They did not lower their weapons, but the tension eased slightly. Elias walked toward the pasture again. He did not hurry. He needed to see his herd. He needed to confirm that nothing was wrong. As he approached, a low vibration grew under his feet. The ground pulsed softly, rhythmically. The herd did not move. They had not grazed in minutes. They watched the crash site, but Elias felt their attention was split, reaching beyond the aliens, beyond the smoke, beyond the sky itself. He knelt and ran his hand along the back of one of the creatures. The skin was warm, surprisingly soft, and beneath it he could feel the steady pulse of something ancient. These creatures were alive in a way humans rarely understood. They were aware. Elias whispered, "It's okay. Nothing will happen unless I allow it." The hum beneath the earth changed, as if acknowledging his voice. He stood slowly. His eyes were on the aliens again, who were still working on their systems near the wreck. Elias' mind worked fast. If the beacon activated, the galaxy would know too much about the herd, about this planet, about the human secrets buried here. That could not happen. The coalition had been arrogant enough to ignore the warnings in old records, the stories of humanity's lost frontier weapons, the containment worlds. They thought humans were weak. They were wrong. He walked back to the rover, connected a comm device, and sent a low-frequency signal. It pulsed across the land, a faint call meant for no one but his own systems. The ground vibration increased subtly, a warning of readiness. He did not smile, but his eyes narrowed. The armed alien noticed. "What are you doing?" it demanded. "Checking the systems," Elias said, "making sure everything is safe." The alien did not move closer. Its weapon remained raised, but Elias could feel its unease. Coalition officers were trained for confidence. Elias' calm was unsettling. A sudden flicker ran across the horizon. The wind carried a low, rolling sound that made the hairs on Elias' arms stand on end. The aliens noticed it too, glancing nervously at each other. "What is that?" the injured one asked, voice shaking slightly. Elias did not answer immediately. He knew the sound. He had not heard it in years, but it was unmistakable. It was the low hum of the herd's latent systems, an ancient pulse waiting for activation. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said finally. "None of you should be here." The armed alien's weapon wavered slightly. "We need repairs. You are refusing us fuel." "No," Elias said. "I am giving you what you need to survive. That is different." The alien did not respond. Elias finished connecting the last fuel cell, then stepped back. He wiped his hands, calm but tense. "Stand down," he said quietly. "Do not touch the beacon. Leave it alone. Do not send a signal." The armed alien laughed again, but it was shorter this time. Something about Elias' voice carried weight, though the alien could not place it. "You think a human can order a coalition officer?" "I do not order," Elias said. "I warn, and I have watched over this world long enough to know when to warn and when to act. This is the first warning. Heed it or pay the cost." The alien stared, unblinking. Elias turned slightly, as if listening to the wind. The limping alien made a soft sound, not entirely fear, but not comfort either. It looked to the armed one. The tension between them was thin but visible. "Do we comply?" the injured one asked quietly. The armed alien did not answer. Its eyes remained on Elias. Elias returned to the pasture. The vibration under the ground had grown, low and steady, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. He crouched near one of the creatures again, running his hand along its shoulder. "They are calm," he whispered. "As long as we stay calm." The air around them seemed to shift, heavy and charged. Dust swirled in soft waves. The hum continued, deeper now, almost musical in tone. Elias could feel the history of this world in it. He could feel the choices made decades ago, the quiet work humans had done in secret. The aliens were watching him, waiting for something they could not understand. Elias straightened. "Do not wake what should sleep," he said again. "Do not force my hand. There is nothing here for you but a warning. Leave it alone." The armed alien hesitated. Its weapon remained ready, but something in its stance softened slightly. It was human in a way, the recognition that strength alone was not always the answer. Elias' gaze swept the pasture. His herd stood perfectly still, their attention divided between him and the horizon. He could see now that their bodies held something more than life. The pulse beneath them had grown stronger, reaching toward the crash site, toward the aliens, toward the sky itself. He did not panic. He had trained for this. He had prepared, and he had patience. "You have your chance," he said quietly. "Leave before you make the wrong choice." The alien commander stared at him, then at its crew. For the first time, hesitation crept into their movements. The injured one breathed faster, the other glanced nervously at the wrecked hull. Elias took a step back toward the rover. He kept his eyes on the aliens, on the crash, on the pasture. Every sense was alert, but he did not rush. He would not rush. That was the rule of the ranch, of the herd, of the hidden world beneath his care. The suns rose higher. Dust swirled. The air carried the low, steady vibration that had begun when the aliens had arrived. Elias Harrow waited. The coalition did not yet know what they had stumbled upon, and he intended to keep it that way. Elias Harrow stood at the edge of the pasture, the hum of the ground growing stronger beneath his boots. It was no longer just a low vibration. It was deliberate, alive, as if the planet itself was aware of the visitors who had dared to breach its quiet. The herd remained still, a dark line against the pale light of the twin suns. Their eyes glimmered faintly, reflecting the distant smoke from the crashed ship. The coalition patrol, still working near the hull, had paused. The armed alien kept its weapon ready, but even it seemed unsettled by the subtle change in the land. It had been trained to expect danger, to trust technology and numbers, but this was something outside their understanding. Elias stepped toward the ridge that overlooked the crash site. Every step was measured, every movement intentional. He could feel the pulse under the ground, a rhythm that matched the deep, slow breathing of the creatures. It was not fear, not anger. It was awareness. The limping alien watched him nervously. What is happening?" it asked, voice trembling slightly. "This is not normal." Elias looked at the being, his expression calm but firm. "You're seeing the herd's response. They are not ordinary animals. They have waited a long time for someone to care for them, and now you are here threatening that care." The armed alien barked a sharp laugh. "Threaten us? You are a single human. We are the coalition. You cannot stop us. Your warnings are meaningless." Elias did not reply immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze back to the pasture. The creatures were beginning to shift subtly. Their muscles moved in waves, synchronized and deliberate, though their bodies remained largely still. The ground beneath them pulsed more strongly, a vibration that seemed to ripple outward, touching the hull of the crashed ship, reaching toward the distant ridge where Elias stood. "They are preparing," Elias said quietly. "Not to attack, not yet, but to defend. If you push, if you turn that beacon on, you will force their hand." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Do you threaten us again?" "No," Elias said. "I am giving you a choice. Leave and no one is harmed. Stay and you will see what humans have always hidden, that we are not weak. We are the keepers, and we do not forgive easily." The limping alien glanced at the armed one, clearly unsettled. The tension among the crew was visible now, even through the thick hull plates and alien composure. They were not invincible, not here, not on this forgotten world. Elias walked closer to the nearest creature. It lowered its head slightly, almost in acknowledgement. He ran his hand along its thick stone-like hide. "You must be patient," he whispered. "We do not act until we are ready." The alien watched this silently, unsure of what to make of it. A human touching these massive creatures, and they listened. Not with words, but with something older, something almost sacred. The air itself seemed to tighten. Dust swirled in small cyclones across the pasture. The light from the suns glinted off the hull of the crashed ship, making it appear even more fragile. Elias' calm presence contrasted sharply with the raw tension of the aliens. Then the hum changed again, sharper this time. It was no longer just a vibration underfoot. It resonated in the air, in the metal of the rover, in the very bones of the aliens. Their scanners, already struggling to read the environment, began to flicker and fail. "What is this?" the armed alien demanded, weapon wavering. Its confidence had cracked. "They are not animals," Elias repeated. "They are guardians. They have waited for a moment like this. You are testing them, but I will not let you wake what should remain asleep." The injured alien shifted, glancing toward the others inside the hull. We do not understand. Humans are small, weak. Why would they have such guardians?" Elias' lips curved slightly, almost in a smile, though his eyes remained serious. "Humans have always been underestimated. Always. That is why we survive. That is why we endure. And that is why we are still here, even when empires think we are gone." The armed alien's crest lowered slightly, a flicker of doubt crossing its features. It did not put the weapon down, but it hesitated. This pause was enough. Elias stepped back from the herd. His hand lingered on one of the creatures for a moment longer, then he moved toward the wrecked ship. The alien followed cautiously, not daring to strike, not yet. "I will show you the cost of ignorance," Elias said softly. "Not because I want to, but because I must protect what belongs here." He approached the hull and crouched near a control panel that was flickering with damaged lights. Using a small device from his kit, he tapped into the ship's systems. Sparks flared, and for a moment the hull hummed in response to his touch. The alien stiffened. "What are you doing?" the armed one demanded, its weapon rising slightly. Elias did not look up. "I'm checking your systems," he said, "making sure nothing dangerous activates. You see, you are close to something that should not be disturbed." The hum beneath the ground grew louder. The creatures lifted their heads slowly, synchronized, as if responding to the activation of some hidden signal. Their eyes glowed faintly in the morning light. Elias' voice was calm but firm. "You will not activate your beacon. Do not call for help. You do not understand what lies beneath this world." The alien's jaw plates tightened. "Explain, now." Elias straightened, his eyes scanning the horizon, the pasture, the creatures. "These animals are not animals. They are remnants of human ingenuity, guardians left behind when humans thought the galaxy would forget us. They are alive, yes, but they are controlled, trained, and waiting for someone who respects them." The alien commander laughed, but it was short and uncertain. "You expect us to believe this, that humans left monsters as guardians?" Elias did not answer immediately. He walked slowly toward the pasture, letting the creature's subtle movements guide him. The hum grew, a deep, resonant vibration that filled the air and made the alien's sensors fail more completely. "You think you are clever," Elias said finally, his voice calm and steady. "You think humans are weak. You think you can take what is not yours. You are wrong. Humans endure, humans protect, and humans will act when forced." The aliens looked at each other, doubt creeping into their movements. Their protocols did not prepare them for this. Their training did not account for a single human controlling what appeared to be a herd of massive, powerful creatures. Elias reached the edge of the pasture and raised his hand. The hum under the ground intensified. The creatures shifted, stepping lightly, almost imperceptibly, yet the change was enough to send a ripple across the soil. "You are here," Elias said, "and you are alive. That is your first warning. Do not test me further. Do not awaken what sleeps. Leave this world now and you will survive. Stay and you will face consequences you cannot comprehend." The armed alien's weapon wavered. The other two began to glance nervously at each other. The injured one let out a low, uncertain sound. The confidence of the coalition patrol was faltering. Elias did not press. He only stood, calm and steady, his eyes on the horizon, on the creatures, on the humans, secret guardians. The suns burned bright, the dust swirled, and the hum continued, a quiet but insistent reminder of the power waiting beneath the surface. "You are underestimating humans," Elias said softly. "You always do. And you will learn one way or another that patience is a strength, not a weakness. That calm is more powerful than fear. That endurance is a weapon no one can see until it strikes." The alien commander's weapon lowered slightly, but only a little. Its crew watched him, uncertain, aware that they were out of their depth in a place that should have seemed ordinary. Elias' eyes drifted toward the ridge, then back to the pasture. The creatures remained still, their attention divided but focused, waiting, aware. "Leave now," Elias said, his voice steady and calm. "While you still can. I will not need to act unless you force my hand." A long pause followed. The wind carried dust across the plain, stirring it into lazy spirals. The aliens said nothing, but the hesitation was clear. They were faced with a choice they had not been prepared to make. Elias turned toward the rover, not rushing, not panicked. He had given his warning. He had made his position clear. The ground pulsed beneath his boots, a low, steady heartbeat of readiness. The creatures watched, silent and perfect, guardians waiting for the moment their master deemed necessary. The suns climbed higher, painting the world in pale gold and deep shadow. The crash site smoked. The aliens worked, hesitant, unsure. Elias knew the galaxy would remember this world soon, if they survived. But for now, the ranch remained under human control, the guardians asleep in plain sight, and Elias' hero, calm, patient, and ready for whatever would come next. The suns were high now, burning harshly across the plains, turning dust into thin sheets of heat that shimmered over the ground. Ilya's harrow stood at the edge of the pasture, the hum beneath his boots steady, deepening like the beat of a drum. The creatures, the herd, had shifted slightly in the last hour. Not running, not charging, but aligning themselves in a subtle formation that Ilias had taught them long ago. The coalition crew continued to work on their ship, though their movements had slowed. The armed alien's weapon wavered more now. Even its stance had lost some of its rigid confidence. It had begun to understand that the warnings were not empty. This human was not ordinary. This world was not ordinary. Ilias stepped closer to the nearest creature. Its skin was cool under his hands, but the pulse beneath it was stronger now, almost a rhythm he could follow. "Patience," he whispered. "Observe, not act. Wait, not provoke. You know your task." The creature's massive head lowered slightly, and the vibration in the ground pulsed in response, spreading outward in subtle waves. Ilias felt it reach the hull of the crashed ship, making metal tremble faintly. The coalition crew looked around nervously. Their scanners were failing again. Lights flickered. Panels beeped in confusion. The armed alien barked orders, sharp and quick, but the sound seemed hollow, powerless against the strange, growing presence of the herd. "Keep working, repair the beacon, do not stop." Ilias' eyes narrowed. "You don't understand," he said softly. "If you turn it on, you will awaken what should not be disturbed, and I cannot stop what will come next if that happens." The alien glanced at him, uncertainty flickering across its face. For the first time, fear appeared, thin but undeniable. Ilias had seen that fear before, though rarely. Humans were often underestimated, but fear recognized strength even when it could not name it. Ilias returned to the ridge overlooking the crash site. From here, he could see the formation of the herd more clearly. Their alignment was precise, almost geometric, like a pattern from a long-forgotten human design. Their massive bodies created shadows across the plain, shifting imperceptibly, yet powerful enough to signal readiness. The limping alien watched him closely. "What are they?" it asked, voice low, almost a whisper. "What have humans done?" Ilias did not answer immediately. He surveyed the area. His eyes flicked to the ship, the aliens, the pasture, and then back to the ridge. "They are guardians," he said finally. "Remnants of human ingenuity. Humans left them behind to protect this world from intruders, from threats. From those who cannot see beyond themselves." The armed alien's weapon lowered slightly, not fully, but enough for the motion to be visible. "You mean weapons?" it asked, disbelief heavy in its tone. "Not just weapons," Ilias said. "Intelligence, adaptation, awareness. They do not act on impulse, they act on command and necessity, and I am their command." The injured alien stirred, making a low, uncertain sound. We cannot fight this," it admitted. "We are trained to conquer, to take, but this is different." Ilias nodded, calm and patient. "That is why I warned you. You were given a chance. You could have left." The air seemed to tighten, charged with the subtle power radiating from the herd. Dust swirled around their feet in small cyclones, the vibration in the ground growing stronger. Even the spacecraft's hull shivered under the pressure. The armed alien hesitated. Its eyes scanned the pasture, the creatures, and then Ilias. For a long moment, nothing moved except the low hum growing in strength. Then, without warning, one of the creatures shifted. Its massive head lifted, and its eyes glowed faintly. The others followed in perfect unison. Ilias stepped forward slightly. "You have forced their attention," he said calmly. "Do not push further. Leave now, or you will see why humans endure when others fall." The alien's scanners failed completely. Lights flickered, panels beeped in error. The hum beneath the ground was deafening now, resonating through every structure, every machine, every bone in their bodies. "Stand down," the armed alien shouted, voice strained. "We need to repair, we cannot." The ground shook. It was not violent, not chaotic, but deliberate, precise. The creatures shifted again, and the air vibrated in rhythm with them. A low, resonant tone filled the plain, like a signal reaching beyond sight, beyond understanding. The coalition crew froze, the sound filling their ears and minds. Ilias raised his hands slightly, and the creatures stopped moving. Their alignment remained perfect. The pulse beneath the earth slowed slightly but remained powerful. "This is your final warning," he said softly. "Leave this place, turn back, or be prepared to see what humanity left behind." The limping alien glanced at the armed one. We cannot stay," it said, voice trembling. "We cannot activate the beacon, not here, not now." The armed alien's crest lowered slightly, but it remained tense. "You are bluffing," it said finally. These are creatures, animals, you cannot control all of them. Elias smiled faintly, though his eyes remained serious. Watch carefully, he said. He stepped toward the pasture, the creature's eyes following him. The hum intensified again, and the ground vibrated beneath them like a heartbeat. Elias' hands moved in subtle gestures, and the herd responded instantly. They did not attack. They did not harm. They only positioned themselves in a new formation, creating a barrier of living strength across the plains. The coalition crew's confidence shattered. The weapon in the aliens' hands wavered, a thin line of doubt appearing where certainty had been moments before. You cannot stop us, the armed alien said, voice rising. We are the coalition, we take what we need, we conquer. Elias shook his head slowly. You do not understand, humans do not conquer, humans endure, humans protect, and humans will act when forced to. That is the difference you have forgotten. The injured alien made a sound that could have been fear. The limping one looked down, unsure where to place its trust. The armed alien's weapon remained raised, but its movements were slower, more cautious. The ground pulsed once more. The creatures lifted their massive heads, eyes glowing brighter. Elias stepped closer. He did not move hastily. He did not shout. He did not panic. His calm presence guided the herd's actions, controlling their attention with precision. You see, Elias said quietly, humans are patient. We endure. We wait. We act only when necessary. And now you are at the edge of that necessity. The coalition crew looked around in disbelief. The herd had formed a living wall across the plain, silent but powerful. The vibration in the ground seemed to push against their feet, making movement difficult. The air itself carried the resonance of human ingenuity, the legacy of guardians designed not to kill recklessly, but to defend efficiently. The armed alien's jaw plates moved as it swallowed, uncertainty growing. This cannot be real, it muttered. You are one human you cannot control. Elias interrupted softly. I am not one human, I am the keeper of this world. And this world has waited a long time for you to learn that humans are not weak. You cannot conquer what you cannot see. You cannot defeat what you do not understand. The aliens glanced at each other. Doubt had replaced arrogance. Hesitation replaced certainty. The limping alien took a cautious step back. The injured one breathed shallowly, eyes wide. Elias' gaze swept across the plain, the pasture, the creatures, the distant ridge, and finally to the crashed ship. This is your chance, he said quietly. Leave now, turn back. Save what remains of your pride. Or stay, and you will see the true strength of humans, the strength that endures beyond fear, beyond technology, beyond arrogance. The suns beat down, dust spiraled lazily, the air vibrated with the pulse of the herd. Elias stood firm, calm, and resolute. The aliens hesitated, their decisions splitting. One step forward or back, one choice to heed the warning or ignore it would decide their fate. Elias waited. The herd waited. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Finally, the armed alien lowered its weapon, slowly, reluctantly. We will comply, it said, voice heavy with disbelief. We leave the beacon, we leave this place. The limping alien exhaled, relief flooding its stance. The injured one, still breathing shallowly, nodded slightly. Elias nodded once calmly. Good, leave before you change your mind. Remember this lesson, humans endure, humans protect, humans are not weak. The coalition crew hesitated no longer. They moved back toward their ship, careful, slower than usual, scanning constantly, their arrogance replaced by cautious respect or fear. Elias watched them go, the hum of the ground slowly fading as they retreated. The herd shifted slightly, returning to their dormant positions. The glow in their eyes dimmed, their movements softened. The pulse beneath the ground slowed, steady and calm once again. Elias stepped back from the ridge. Dust drifted across the plains. The suns burned high. The air was quiet. The ranch remained under human control. He breathed deeply. Patience, endurance, restraint. These had won the day, and the galaxy would remember, eventually, that humans were not to be underestimated. Elias looked across the pasture, toward the herd, toward the horizon. The legacy of humanity's guardians was safe for now, and he would continue to protect it as he always had. The suns shone down, the dust drifted. And the world remained calm, under the watchful eyes of a single human, and the creatures that waited quietly for the day they might be needed. The suns were sinking now, casting long shadows across the plains. Dust rose in lazy spirals, catching the fading light. Elias Harrow stood at the edge of the pasture, his eyes scanning the horizon. The coalition ship had retreated. its engines leaving a faint trail of heat and smoke, but the memory of its presence lingered in the air. The herd had returned to their dormant positions, massive forms blending into the landscape. Their eyes no longer glowed, their massive bodies relaxed. The pulse beneath the ground was steady, calm, but Elias could still feel it under his boots. A quiet reminder, they were ready if ever needed again. Elias walked back toward the ridge where he had watched the encounter unfold. His boots crunched over the dry soil, steady, deliberate. The ranch was quiet now, but the weight of what had just happened pressed heavily on him. This was not the first time humanity had been underestimated. It would not be the last. He climbed to the top of the ridge and looked across his land. The fences, the barns, the old windmill, they were ordinary to the untrained eye, but Elias knew better. Beneath the surface, a legacy of human ingenuity and perseverance lay waiting, hidden from the galaxy, ready to act when necessary. The twin suns glared harshly, reflecting off the armored backs of the creatures in the pasture. Elias had trained them for decades, nurtured them, and in turn they had grown to trust him, to respond to his voice and presence. They were not mere beasts, they were the quiet strength of a species the galaxy had dismissed. A soft hum reached his ears, faint but persistent. Elias smiled slightly. The herd was communicating with each other, a subtle exchange of energy and vibration. They had felt the tension, the threat, the arrogance of the coalition patrol, and they had stood ready. But they had not acted without him. That was the lesson he had taught them, the rule he had instilled. Act only when necessary and always protect. Elias felt a strange pride, tempered with humility. Humans had survived countless trials, been underestimated, dismissed, and hunted. Yet here he was, a single man on a forgotten frontier world, standing as the guardian of a hidden legacy. The galaxy had tested him, and he had endured. He returned to the main house, the hum of the herd following subtly beneath the ground. Inside, he poured himself a cup of tea, savoring the warmth and the simplicity of the ritual. The day had been long, tense, and unpredictable, but the immediate threat was gone. For now. As he sipped, he allowed his mind to wander. He thought of the old records, the forgotten wars, the decisions that had left the Guardians in his care. The galaxy had not remembered humanity then, and perhaps it would try to forget again. But Elias knew the truth. Humans endured, humans protected, and humans would always rise when the need was greatest. Outside, the wind carried the faint sound of movement. Elias set down his cup and walked to the window. The herd had shifted slightly, forming a loose circle around the pasture. They were watching, not with fear, not with aggression, but with awareness. They were alive in a way that demanded respect, and they were patient, waiting for his guidance. Elias stepped outside. The air was warm and dry, carrying the scent of earth and dust. He walked among the creatures, running his hand along their backs, feeling the steady pulse beneath their skin. "You did well today," he whispered. "You kept the promise. You waited and nothing was lost." The largest of the creatures lowered its head slightly, as if acknowledging his words. The vibration beneath his boots softened, blending into the gentle rhythm of the evening. Elias took a deep breath, letting the calm wash over him. He knew the coalition would not forget this encounter. They would speak of it in their reports, debate it in their councils, and perhaps fear it in the quiet moments of the galaxy. But Elias did not dwell on that. He had done what was necessary, protected what was valuable, and reminded the galaxy that humans were not weak. Night fell slowly. The twin moons rose, casting silver light across the plains. Shadows stretched long and thin, and the air grew cooler. Elias walked to the edge of the ridge once more, gazing at the distant horizon. The wind stirred the dust, carrying it in slow spirals that reflected the light of the moons. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine the galaxy beyond the frontier. Worlds teeming with life, empires expanding, stars burning in the void. And somewhere out there, civilizations might think themselves supreme, invincible, and untouchable. Yet Elias knew the truth. Humans endured quietly, patiently, hidden until the moment they were needed. A soft, almost imperceptible vibration passed through the ground. Elias' eyes narrowed. The herd was responding, communicating with each other. There was no threat, no danger, only awareness, a reminder that they were alive, alert, and ready. He walked among them once more, letting his hands brush along their backs. "You rest now," he whispered. "We will not need to act, not tonight." The air cooled further as darkness settled. The stars appeared, countless points of light scattered across the sky. Elias looked up, feeling the weight of time, history, and humanity's hidden legacy pressing gently against him. He thought of the coalition, of the patrol that had come uninvited, of the arrogance that had underestimated him and his herd. They had learned a lesson whether they realized it or not. Humans were not weak, humans endured, humans protected, and when necessary, humans acted with precision, patience, and power. The wind shifted again, carrying the faint scent of the plains, the faint hum of life, the quiet pulse of guardians waiting. Elias felt a strange calm, the kind that came after conflict, after tension, after the storm had passed. He returned to the house, closing the door behind him. The world outside was quiet now, but alive. The herd rested in the pasture, their presence felt rather than seen. The twin moons cast silver light across the plains, and the stars reflected in the windows of the old house. Elias poured another cup of tea, savoring the warmth and the simplicity. He sat in his chair, letting his mind drift. The day had been long and the work had been difficult, but humanity had endured. The galaxy had been reminded, subtly yet unmistakably, that humans were not to be dismissed. The suns had set, the moons had risen, and the dust drifted slowly across the plains. Elias Harrow sat quietly, watching, listening, waiting. The guardians rested, but they would awaken again if ever needed. And he would be there, as he always had been, ready to guide, to protect, and to endure. The stars stretched across the sky, endless and eternal. The world beneath his feet thrummed with life and power. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, letting the quiet strength of humanity and the guardians surround him. He opened his eyes, calm and alert. The galaxy might forget, civilizations might underestimate, and empires might rise and fall. But humans endured, and Elias Harrow, a simple rancher on a forgotten frontier world, stood as proof. The hum beneath the ground softened, the creatures in the pasture shifted slightly, and the world remained quiet. For now. Elias sipped his tea, breathing in the calm, letting the legacy of humans and their hidden guardians sink into the night. The galaxy would remember, eventually, that humans endure, that humans protect, and that humans act when the need is greatest. And Elias Harrow would be there, watching, waiting, ensuring that this legacy survived. The moons reflected in the windows, the dust drifted in the silver light, and the plains remained quiet, guarded by the herd and the man who understood their power. The day had ended. Humanity's strength had been quietly revealed, and the galaxy, though unaware, had learned a subtle but unmistakable truth. Humans were not weak. Humans endured, humans protected, and the frontier would never forget it. Elias set his cup down, stood, and walked toward the edge of the porch. The world stretched before him, vast and silent, yet alive with possibility. He felt the pulse beneath his boots, the quiet energy of the guardians, the steady reminder that patience and endurance could shape the outcome of any challenge. He breathed deeply, the air carrying the scent of dust, earth, and life. The herd was calm, the world quiet, and the galaxy unaware of the forces it had underestimated. Elias Harrow smiled faintly. The frontier was safe for now, humanity's secret preserved, and the guardians resting. He had fulfilled his duty as he always would. The stars sparkled above, the moons hung low, and the dust drifted slowly across the plains. Elias Harrow, a human, a rancher, a guardian, stood ready, calm and patient, prepared to endure and protect for as long as it took. And the galaxy would one day learn the truth. Humans endure, humans protect, and humans will always rise when the need is greatest. The suns would rise again, the moons would follow, and the herd would remain vigilant. Elias Harrow had shown the galaxy, quietly yet unmistakably, that humanity's strength was not in conquest, but in patience, endurance, and protection.